Pep Guardiola's Man City reign faces total meltdown with a new gaffer already lined up to take over. Real Madrid have slapped their main star on the transfer list, while United prepare a massive hijack bid. Atletico Madrid are closing in on Mason Greenwood. Plus, Arsenal's £80 million offer for Barca's star defender got a brutal rejection. All this and much more in today's episode. Let's try to hit 250 likes on this video, and we'll be back tomorrow with more transfer madness. Hit that like button and let's dive in. Atletico Madrid are eyeing up Mason Greenwood. And no, this isn't some throwback to his Getafe days. This one feels properly serious. Diego Simeone himself is keen on the forward, and frankly, that should set alarm bells ringing across the whole of La Liga. Because when El Cholo goes hunting personally, it means something massive is brewing in Atletico's attack. Just look at the current setup. Antoine Griezmann turned down a move to Orlando City not long ago, but whispers around the Metropolitano keep getting louder. The Frenchman's era is winding down, if not right now, then very soon. And with that vacancy on the horizon, the search for a top-level replacement has already kicked off. That brings us to Mason Greenwood. He's 24, he knows the league, and he knows the city. Cadena Ser reckon Atletico have been keeping tabs on him ever since his loan at Getafe, but the deal just didn't come together back then. Now the stars are aligning, largely because his form in France has been absolutely frightening. 15 goals in Ligue 1, making him the division's top scorer, plus 25 goals and 8 assists across 38 matches in all competitions this season. You simply can't ignore numbers like that. There are two sticking points though. First off, Greenwood himself. He was reportedly comfortable living in Madrid, and that matters massively for Simeone's system. El Cholo doesn't just want skill, he wants a grafter, a player ready to put the shift in from the very first training session, with zero warm-up period. Then there's the really juicy part, the Julian Alvarez situation. Atletico keep insisting the Argentine isn't available, but Barcelona are clearly sniffing around. If Alvarez does end up leaving, the hole in attack becomes enormous. Greenwood might just be the man they try to plug it with. This brings up a massive point. Is this a genuine upgrade, or just damage control ahead of a major exit? It really looks like Atletico are bracing for a summer, where Griezmann calls it a day and Alvarez heads off to Barcelona. In that scenario, Greenwood isn't just some backup option. He might actually be the main plan. And if Simeone personally wants him, the stakes are clearly higher than a casual wait-and-see approach. It's a classic bit of Spanish window business. While everyone else chases the big-name headlines, Atletico quietly go after someone who's already shown he can handle life and football in Madrid. Sometimes that kind of smart, under-the-radar move works out better than splashing £1 billion. Will Pep Guardiola stay at Manchester City? The footballing world has been asking this exact same thing for 10 straight years. Every single season follows the same script. The rumors start flying, the hints get dropped, everyone holds their breath, and then Pep puts pen to paper on yet another deal. But right now, it all feels properly up in the air again. On one hand, the basics are straightforward enough. Pep's contract runs until the summer of 2027, and he's always liked saying he sees his agreements through. That logic tracks. On the other hand, getting knocked out of the Champions League by Real Madrid just hit different this time. It felt like it carried a deeper meaning. After that match, Pep went full tired philosopher on everyone. A journalist asked him straight up if he was staying. He came back with, "Oh, everyone wants me sacked, yeah? My God, lads, one day I'll walk in and say bye to everyone. But for now, I'm still here." Sounds reassuring, right? But if you actually listen to his exact words, he literally told us, "One day I'll walk in and say." That one day is what everyone inside City is desperately trying to crack right now. According to Fabrizio Romano, the club are just waiting on Pep's call. If he does nothing, he stays put. But quietly, the board are already preparing for the possibility that he walks this summer, and they've already locked in a successor. It's Enzo Maresca, Guardiola's former assistant, the man who got Leicester promoted, and then a manager who didn't last long at all at Chelsea. Sacked from Stamford Bridge, but definitely not written off. The irony here is hard to miss. When Chelsea let Maresca go, Pep himself came out and said the club had just lost an incredible coach. Now City are lining themselves up to scoop that very same coach for themselves. Maresca hasn't held talks with Tottenham or Manchester United either, and his inner circle know all about City's interest. The picture is crystal clear at this point. Maresca isn't a backup plan. He is the top choice if Pep goes. That just leaves one missing piece, whether Pep actually pulls the trigger. While we're talking about plans, my plan A right now is a bit more personal. I need those of you watching this on your TVs to finally drop a like. Lads, I properly appreciate you letting me onto your big screens, but I can see the stats, and they are brutal. You're watching every single minute from start to finish, and nobody's pressing like. Who's gonna do it, Haaland? Grab your remote, find the little thumbs up icon, aim at it, and press. Because my plan B is rocking up at your house and pressing it myself. Football Insider are pouring even more fuel on this fire. Inside the club, an increasing number of people are coming to terms with the idea that this could be Pep's last season. 10 years in the dugout, 6 Premier League titles, and so many domestic cups that nobody even keeps count anymore. It is an absolutely untouchable legacy. But this season, City just haven't been the same beast. The squad looks knackered, and Pep himself looks exhausted too. He's basically admitted as much in his pressers. Consider this Sunday. He's got the League Cup final against Arsenal coming up. For some, it's just another trophy to chase. For Guardiola, it could genuinely be his last final on English soil. That changes everything about how this moment feels. So who actually needs this endless guessing game? Pep himself, the club, or all of us, who for 10 solid years haven't been able to imagine Manchester City without that intense furrowed brow on the touchline? City aren't going to sack him. That would be madness even after a season without a major trophy, but they've quietly sorted a safety net behind the scenes, and Maresca is ready and waiting. As for Pep, well, he did say, "One day I'll walk in and say goodbye." It's looking increasingly likely that one day could land in just a couple of months. Then again, if it doesn't, we'll all be right back here next spring having this exact same conversation. And, in truth, that kind of endless loop would be the most Guardiola thing ever. Barcelona and Manchester United are back at it, haggling over Marcus Rashford once again. This time, the Catalans have come to the table with a proposal that raised a few eyebrows. Not a permanent deal, but another loan. According to the Daily Mail, Barca want to go again on a second consecutive season-long arrangement. Both Rashford and Flick are reportedly fully on board with that idea. The problem, as always, is money. The current deal already has a £26 million purchase clause baked in, and it can be activated this summer. For a player of Rashford's quality, that is a genuinely fair market price. Most clubs wouldn't hesitate, but Barcelona are walking a financial tightrope. With a couple of other key signings reportedly on their wish list for the summer, even that figure hits the budget hard. This sparked the loan extension idea, essentially acting as a way to kick the financial commitment down the road. Manchester United, for their part, aren't exactly queuing up to hand out favors. They have a squad to reshape and FFP regulations to satisfy. Rashford is one of the main assets they want to see a proper return on. Reports suggest United would consider another loan, but only if an obligatory purchase clause is included. Without that, there is zero incentive for them to leave their options hanging open for another year. Rashford himself is said to be willing to take a wage cut to make the Barcelona move permanent, and his form since arriving has more than justified the interest. Flick rates him highly. Interestingly, though, he doesn't see him as an automatic starter in one fixed role, which is a curious stance to take on a player you are actively trying to keep. That leaves us in a stalemate. Barcelona want the loan, United demand guarantees, and somewhere in between those two positions, a deal either gets done or it collapses entirely. Madrid are having another go at their backline this summer, but it looks like they're keeping things surprisingly calm. A new centre-back is on the way to the Bernabeu. David Alaba will get a handshake and a farewell when his deal runs out, and the big squad shakeup might be completely finished right there. The crucial story here isn't about who's arriving. It's about whether the bloke everyone assumed was leaving will actually stick around. Antonio Rudiger. He's 33, his contract is winding down, and at the start of the season, most people had him heading to Saudi Arabia, one final massive payday, the classic retirement route. But according to Matteo Moretto, Rudiger is closer to staying than leaving. That is when you start doing the maths, because his physical numbers are properly wild. He's missed 21 games this season and only played in 17. End of last season. Knee surgery. 6 weeks out. September. Another operation. 3 more months gone. January. A third injury hit. and they found early-stage arthritis in the knee. 3 surgeries in a year, arthritis at 33, and Madrid are still looking at giving him a fresh deal, reportedly just a 1-year extension. This doesn't feel like a purely sporting decision. This feels like a dressing room call. Because whenever Rudiger gets himself fit, he walks right back into the team. He's up against Raúl Asensio and Dean Huijsen, but his experience, his warrior mentality, and that aura he carries make a massive difference. Madrid are going through a proper generational changeover. Losing a man who doesn't fold in the biggest games, who wins his duels and actually thrives on the pressure, is a hard sell for Florentino. Even if the knee is doing its own thing entirely, what Madrid are really choosing here isn't the fittest defender on their books. It's the one with the strongest nerve. Keep Rudiger, and you don't need to panic buy 2 centre-backs. You bring in one, keep the old guard as the backbone, and manage the transition properly. The gamble, though, is how long that backbone holds up under the strain. Madrid seem to have made their call. They would rather have Rudiger with a medical team watching his every step than go without him and throw 2 jittery newcomers into the deep end. Newcastle are at it again, hunting Italian midfielders like it's their favorite hobby. It looks like life at St. James's Park just isn't complete without another compatriot for Tonali. According to Sportsboom, the next name on the list is Nicolo Barella. The Magpies are reportedly preparing 40 million quid to test Inter's resolve. In the world of big money transfers, testing resolve is really just a polite way of saying, we've turned up with cash, and we're not going away until you crack. Barella is already 29. For a club constantly building towards something, that's either peak maturity or the start of the countdown. On one hand, he boasts over 300 appearances for Inter, 25 goals, and 67 assists. He came through the ranks at Cagliari and carries proper pedigree. On the other hand, why would the Magpies chase another Italian in the middle of the park when Tonali himself reportedly has 1 foot out the door? The logic makes sense on paper. If Sandro leaves, you need someone battle-tested and ready to go. Newcastle's scouts have had Barella on their radar for so long, the ink on their notes has probably faded. Now, it seems, they've finally moved beyond just watching. But 40 million for a key Inter player? That sounds like trying to buy a Ferrari at Kia prices. Newcastle do have their own economic strategy, though. If you're swapping one Italian for another, you could argue you're just keeping that Mediterranean energy balanced in the dressing room. What really matters is whether Barella himself actually fancies the move. In Milan, he's already a legend. In England, he'd just be one of the candidates to replace someone who hasn't even left yet. But these things rarely come down to pure logic. Sometimes it's simply about the moment a club opens the checkbook and says, let's see how unshakable you really are. We'll see how it plays out. Either Tonali stays, and this whole saga turns into nothing more than a scouting exercise, or Newcastle finally land their Italian midfielder, a player who will run, pass, and create, right up until the next Italian name pops up on the wish list. Arsenal are in the queue for Pau QUBARSI, but they've got plenty of company. Man City, Chelsea, and Bayern Munich are all circling the same player. 4 clubs with seriously deep pockets, and each one fancies their chances. But this deal has a massive catch. The 19-year-old Barcelona centre-back is locked in until 2029, with a €500 million release clause sitting right on top. That's not a transfer fee. That's Barca's way of saying, back off, don't even think about it. Still, reports from the Daily Briefing and Caught Offside have broken through, and the message is clear. The big boys are watching. There's been 0 formal contact so far, not with the player and not with his agent. But if QUBARSI starts dragging his feet on a new deal in the next year or two, that is the green light every one of them is waiting for. The hype makes perfect sense. The lad has been nailing down a starting spot at Camp Nou for 3 straight seasons. At just 19, people are already calling him one of the best centre-backs in Europe. A scout from one of these chasing clubs reportedly noted that QUBARSI has almost flawless decision-making and intelligence way beyond his age. Sounds like something you'd pull straight off a Football Manager Wonderkid profile. But no, that's a genuine, real-life quote. Barca themselves aren't losing sleep over this. People close to the club say there's absolutely no reason to panic. They're about to upgrade his deal, and they're even lining him up for the captain's armband at 19, just so you understand the sheer level of trust they have in this kid. Right now, QUBARSI has everything sorted at the club. But in the transfer game, this kind of quiet can be properly misleading. The second there's any whisper of a contract delay, the top clubs flick into standby mode. They just sit there, waiting for even a tiny crack to appear in what looks like the perfect setup. The ultimate test isn't whether someone can drop $500 million on him, because nobody can. The reality is whether QUBARSI himself will keep ignoring the fact that Europe's richest clubs are all queuing up behind him. Jude Bellingham sitting on a transfer list sounds completely absurd. A year ago, you'd have been absolutely rinsed for even suggesting it. But if reports from the Spanish outlet Fichajes are anything to go by, Real Madrid don't see the Englishman as untouchable anymore. Madrid are willing to listen to offers, and this is a lad who's just 22 years old. So, what went wrong? It's pretty simple and quite sad. The numbers don't lie. Over the last 2.5 years, Bellingham made himself absolutely vital for Los Blancos. But this season has turned into one long trip to the physio room. Just 28 matches, 6 goals and 4 assists. For a player of his caliber, that is a poor return, no two ways about it. The culprit is old injuries coming back to haunt him. Shoulder problems, tendon issues. His injury record is starting to look like a veteran's medical file rather than a young athlete's. You know what else looks like a chronic problem? Your habit of watching my videos from the shadows without subscribing. Seriously, I can see you lot. You come here every time, but that subscribe button stays completely untouched. Do me a favor, cure my stats with one click before I end up needing a doctor myself from the stress. Bellingham's form just isn't what it was under Ancelotti. He stopped being that machine who dominated the middle of the park. And right on cue, the big Premier League clubs have entered the chat. Chelsea and Manchester United are already lining up. Chelsea's interest, frankly, looks a bit odd. Where are you actually going to play him? You've got Cole Palmer dragging that team forward on his own. Trying to squeeze 2 kings into the exact same position is either pure genius or just another episode of recruitment chaos. Manchester United, though, is a completely different story. There's a massive rebuild brewing at Old Trafford. Bruno Fernandes is past 30 now, and his career in Manchester looks like it's heading towards the final chapter. By all accounts, the Portuguese could actually leave the club this summer. If that happens, you're not just looking at a hole in midfield, you're looking at a canyon. United's board sees Bellingham as that marquee leader, around whom Ineos want to build an entirely new project. Let's look at the harsh reality for a second, though. Madrid want €150 million for Bellingham. For a player who's spent the second half of this season on the treatment table, yes, Bellingham's talent is absolutely world-class. His work rate and ability to burst forward from deep are genuinely elite. But are those qualities really worth that kind of mad money right now? For Manchester United, this is a gigantic gamble. If they splash that kind of cash and take him on with all his injury baggage and tactical inconsistency, this could either become the transfer of the decade or the most expensive flop in the club's entire history. Will Ineos have enough common sense not to overpay? Or will the desire to shock the market win out over logic? One thing is for certain, this summer is going to be absolutely scorching in both Madrid and Manchester. Bellingham is back in the spotlight, but this time around, it's not because of his goals.